let's jump a little bit into, where you came up with the idea and how you started with this business.
Yeah, so I mean, the idea of Call the Bee came from my name's Kenny Burns, so Kenny B. A lot of people call me Kenny B. So, and I got a problem. Like I have to stay busy all the time, and so I'm always working on something or building something. So my wife's like, Kenny B, let's call this Call the Bee, right? Because everyone around here calls me for help. So it was just fitting, and there's just a lot of marketing that you can do around a bee. You know what I mean? So we went with it, and we had Dan Antonelli rebrand us. We made this decent brand. We wanted it to be flashy. We wanted to stick out when we drove by. We wanted people to actually stop what they were doing and have to look at this happy bee, right?
Circling back to the bee thing, and I think of like, okay, I'm a father, right? I got 3 little kids, and I'm driving down the road, and I see my kids, and my kids are like, "Daddy, the bee, the bee, the bee." I can imagine like that's kind of what happens. Is that kind of something you guys get out there?
Oh yeah, 100%. And the biggest thing is why we had Dan Antonelli rebrand us a little bit. It was I needed this thing to come alive and be 3D, because the whole thing is like like I said, when we have go by, just like you said, the kids are like, "Oh, look at the bee," right? So I was like, how can we animate this thing and then teach kids from a young age, just call the bee, right? For what? Everything. Just call the bee. So we're going to start making cartoons, and we started to have a few of them, and we're just going to teach kids, growing up, you just call the bee for whatever you need, right? So
and that's huge, right? So like there's a lot of guys in California that have been around for a long time, right? Like we have the smell good plumber, right? Like that thing has been around since I was a little kid, and it got ingrained in my brain as a kid through the radio and advertising and stuff like that. And that's who you call. Like I called Mike Diamond for plumbing. That's who we think about, right? And the same thing, there's like an Audi do, and you really got to create, like obviously that's trying to create a generational business, right? And like for us, like we tied ours in, to the radio, and obviously my daughter's on the radio, and we have our little jingle, and she's on there, and dude, you'll be little kids, we drive by, we stop, and they start saying absolute airflow, and it's you get the kids saying it, and then it's hard for the parents. I remember, and I always talk about the story. One of my sales reps calls me, right, and he says, "Hey Vic, I got this guy here. He really wants to move forward, but we're more expensive than the other guy." And he's like, I start talking to the customer. He's like, "Yeah, my daughter just sings your freaking radio ad all day long," and I said, my only concern, Mr. Smith, and I don't remember the customer's name, but my only concern is that you go with somebody else, they don't do a very good job, and all your daughter is singing my jingle around your house. I don't know how you're going to feel about that, but it probably pissed me off. And the guy laughs. Yeah, and then he laughs, and we end up, it's closing the deal. So if you can get the kids involved, that's a big deal. So I really like the brand. I really like the logo. I think it's something that, it's great. And if you're a startup right now, and you're thinking like, hey, I'm going to name my business, whatever your last name is, Heating and Air. Really think about something that's going to resonate with people. I think that's what I did. I don't know how you did it, but like I remember the night I said I'm going to start a business. I laid on my living room floor, and my wife said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. I'm freaking writing out all these different names and all these things. I'm going back and forth." And I knew day one I didn't want to be my last name or C&L Mechanical or some shit like that. You know what I mean? I wanted to be something that was memorable. And then importantly, as you probably know, like sellable, right? Like if I'm a private equity or if somebody coming in, I don't want to buy a last name. I want to buy a name that we can resonate with everybody. You know what I mean?
Right.